Welcome. I am Nikki Golden, and a strategist at Association Laboratory, and I am so excited to have you here for another one of our interviews for our 25th anniversary leadership series. I have with me today the lovely Jackie Price-Osafo, who is CEO of the Society of American Archivists. And Jackie has had has been a longtime leader in the association's space, as well as now a current Association Forum of Chicagoland board member. But you've also spent a lot of time in membership with the HEMA as VP of membership, at the Water Quality Association as membership director, and also at the American Society for Gastrointestinal and Endoscopy. I always have trouble with that word.
Most people do, don't worry.
Exactly. So welcome, Jackie. We're so excited, especially with your membership background, to kind of talk to you about some of these things that we see on the horizon and what you think of them.
Well, thank you so much, Nikki, for having me today. Always a thrill to sit in a space with colleagues to chat about the association community and where we see ourselves going in the future.
All right. Well, let's just kind of jump into it. As we are celebrating Association Laboratories' 25th anniversary, we're kind of looking ahead now to almost as long in that 20 years into the future. And so if you were to project, 20 years in the future and then look back at today, what do you think would be the most startling change that we see in association leadership?
So if I were to put myself 20 years out and then look back, what would I see as the most startling change as it relates to leadership? Ooh, that's a big one, Nikki. And I guess I'm just going to stick to the person that I am in general as it relates to leadership. And that would be collaborative leadership. Long gone are the days of the CEO is here and everyone else is here or here and here, and things are sort of trickled down. So instead of sort of that top down, I like to operate in the fashion that we meet someplace in the middle. So the bottom's meeting in the middle and the top is meeting in the middle. So how do we stay in the space of collaboration? Even today, I find myself more successful with my staff and with my leaders if we meet someplace in the middle. Instead of me doing the one who drives the train, I say that we're all sitting in that first caboose and we're all taking turns to drive it with respect and kindness. So I would say collaboration. I don't think that's going to change, and it shouldn't change.
No, and I think it took us so long to get here, where everybody understands that, it is a team sport, association management, and especially because there's so many moving pieces to it. If everybody is working together versus waiting for somebody else to make a decision and, step forward and take that leadership role all the time, obviously there are times when that needs to happen. You have so much ownership at the end, and
Yes.
that really makes those initiatives move forward when people have that ownership to get there.
Definitely, definitely.
And I think that kind of is a nice segue too into kind of the second area we want to talk about. Our sector research looking forward has really identified that COVID disrupted all these historical behaviors. And I think we were starting to see glimmers of it pre-COVID, but COVID really just kind of was that stopping point, where you think about eliminating the boundaries for information, money, competency by technology, and increasing competition from not just for-profit organizations, but also from our members that also, self-organizing to talk about things. So together, these factors are sort of disrupting traditional association models. What do you think is the most existential threat to association leadership, and how can it be turned into an opportunity versus just, something that we wring our hands about and don't do anything?
I think one of the biggest threat is the perceptions that we have engaged and adopted as it relates to the generation that's coming behind us. And I struggle with this in any leadership meeting that I'm in, Nikki, when we chat about, well, the younger generation wants this. The younger generation is X, Y, and Z. And I simply say, let's stop putting all these labels on the younger generation, and let's figure out how we can move about in the world together, because we are passing the association community. We're passing on the world basically to our children. So for those of us who are chatting about the younger generation, many of us are parents of the younger generation. So we created this generation, and then we come to work and we criticize them. We socialize them into this particular category and this particular group instead of inviting them to the table. If I can have all 26-year-olds work for me, oh my God, I would certainly do that, because I really want to help prepare them to take on the world, to take on the next steps, to move us forward, to think about where we should be in 10 years, 20 years. Honestly, I think the group that's behind us is probably the smartest generation, because they've had the benefit of all of our training, of watching us, and then they also had the benefit of technology, which we did not have as we sort of grew up in this space. So I would say the biggest threat is people, let's stop shaming, let's stop shunning, let's stop criticizing, and let's invite our young folks to the table. Let's figure out how we can work together so that when we get ready to make this transition, that we're making it with ease, and they're prepared, and we are also prepared for the amazing work that they will do.
You know, I think about this a lot, especially because, as you mentioned, Jackie, we're now the next generation above. But if you think about it, and some of our research for our clients also bears this forth, that it's not necessarily generational. It's really more, you know, where you are in your career. If you think about what you are like at the beginning of our careers, you know, we were eager, we were excited, we wanted to like do all the tasks. And why not harness that energy instead of feeling kind of threatened by it? It's really a learning opportunity both ways, as you said, because of their comfort level with technology, which is so much more so than ours. I know every time that they update my phone, I'm still like, oh, am I going to have to relearn something? I don't look at it as like just a part of life yet, but they do. And so how can we upskill ourselves learning from that generation on that technology comfort? How do you make decisions about technology? You know, what's useful, what's not, what's a waste of time? What do we have to prepare our members for in terms of technology? You're right. There is just this vast amount of information that we could take advantage of if we just kind of flipped it and remembered what we were like at the beginning of our career. We wanted a seat at the table. We wanted to do everything. You know, we wanted to understand how all the pieces work together.
Right.
So like there's no difference generationally. It's really more just we're in a different place in our career, and they're in the place that we used to be, you know, maybe 5 or 10 years ago.
Well, not much has changed when we talk about our wants, as you described. Not much has changed. When I think about, you know, early on in my career working for the Emergency Nurses Association, if I think about my needs at that time, they're very similar to the group that's standing behind us. Not much has changed. So I'm simply saying, invite them to the table, give them a seat, give them a voice. The other thing that's so exciting to me about this generation behind us is their willingness to take calculated risk and to step up to the plate. So if you think about, they're willing to take the risk, and they're not just taking a risk just because, but they're taking calculated risk, and they're stepping up to the table. So, you know, I'm not saying let's get out of the way, but let's step aside. Let's step aside and give them an opportunity. I am child free, but I would say I have nieces and nephews starting at age 35 to 2. So I'm in that space operating with them mentally as I have these conversations with my nieces and nephews. And Auntie Jackie sometimes have to step aside because they're really smart. They're really smart. And I want us to embrace that. I want us to be able to say yes to them and give them the space to grow and be the amazing people that we as aunts and uncles, as parents, have raised them to be.
And also, I just think about, you know, how much we used to cringe when we would hear, well, that's the way we've always done it. And so like, why are we starting to say that now?
Yeah, I don't even have that in my vocabulary. Like I hardly ever say that's because, first of all, I am not a that's the way we've always done it person. I have a difficult time going the same direction 2 or 3 times because I want to discover. So when I'm in my car and the lady says turn left, my mind said, girl, turn right. You might discover something new. So I operate in sort of like turn right. You might discover something new. Go forward, go backwards, go to the left. It doesn't always have to be the way that we've always done it. And even if
Right.
it works, you can still change an element of it to create a different
Exactly.
experience.
Exactly. And I think with that change that you're talking about, with the next generation coming in and how we are able to kind of harness that, what do you think is a leadership trait that will become obsolete in the future of associations, and what kind of traits might emerge to replace that?
What is coming? I mean, I'll tell you what's becoming obsolete right now in the space that I operate in is, again, when I think about the leadership who sits sort of like in that corner office, and no one can talk to that person, no one can touch that person. Only those folks who sit like maybe on the next level. So if I think about I'm being a receptionist, and can I have a conversation with the CEO? That has to go away. Yes, I should be able to walk into my CEO's office and have a conversation and say, I have a great idea. I leave my door open to me, regardless of what position that you have in my office. I don't really care. I realize that, yes, I'm the CEO. I'm ultimately responsible. But at the end of the day, the titles doesn't really matter. It's, do
Yeah.
we have the right skill set? Do we have the right mindset? Do we have the excitement and the energy to move the organization forward? So that's sort of, I'm sitting in my corner office and I'm the boss, needs to go away.
Yeah, hierarchy has really become obsolete in the last couple of years, and it should.
It
Because like
should.
you said, if you have a culture in your organization of we're all moving together in this direction, then why does it matter who comes up with an idea on how to get there?
It
Everybody
doesn't matter.
feel empowered, and really excited about it. And how do you share that excitement? You share your ideas about that project, that initiative, that goal, what have you.
And I use I use sort of like the train analogy a lot with my staff when I'm chatting about leadership, when I'm chatting about projects. And the train moves because multiple things are happening at one time. So if we
Mhm.
think about ourselves as being part of an actual train and realizing that, the engine needs to run, the wheels need to run, it needs to be able to stop, and then there's a conductor. But when the conductor gets tired, another conductor steps into their space. So this is how we need to look at organizations, that we're a moving train. The train does not run because Jackie's driving it. It's run because maybe Jackie's driving it today, but there's 5 other people that are making all the other parts move at the same time so that the train runs in a great way, so that it runs efficiently. The other thing I think that we need to move away from is, and I see this shift happening, and I'm excited about it, is the homogeneous look that we normally had. So I think about when I stepped into the association space and I walked into a boardroom, many times I was the only person who looked like me. That is shift. And I'm excited about that shift because I believe that it takes a generation of folks from all different backgrounds to be in that space. So if we look at it from an ethnicity, from a gender, from sexual orientation, all those folks need to have a voice at the table. Because here's where the creativity happens: when there's a bit of a rub and there's differences of opinion, we create something brand new.
Yeah. And again, like that's why it's generationally too so important to allow the younger generation to have a seat at the table, because that diversity of thought as well is so
Yes.
important, in order to understand what the association needs to do to be relevant in 10, 20 years.
Excellent. Yes, you're 100% correct. I'm excited.
So, emerging traits, though, you kind of left that portion of the question out. What are some of the emerging traits that you think will be replacing some of that hierarchical, and lack of diversity at the table?
When I think about emerging traits, I just go back to diversity, Nikki, because a big shift happened during COVID, and when we had the civil unrest. If we think about George Floyd, um, that 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 sitting in a boardroom and looking at the room and seeing that I am the only person who looked like me is starting to go away, and that makes me excited, because as a person of color, it's difficult to be in that space. It is very
Yeah.
hard to operate. It's hard to be creative, and it's hard to gain respect when you know you have the skills and the talent. So that trait, to me, it's time for it to go away. We need to respect the fact that there are diverse opinions matter, that diverse opinion makes a difference, that we create again something brand new when we have that in the room. So that trait, it's time for it to go away. It's time and forever. So, a great thing that's happening is we see that a lot of those folks are retiring, and the world is saying yes to people like you and I from a gender perspective.
And I think too that authenticity goes along with that too, is allowing people to have the space to be who they are, rather than, kind of have these, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of just made up personas to feel like they need to fit in. Being able to come from a place of comfort of this is who I am and this is what I bring to the table, and knowing that that is valued also helps those discussions and helps that decision-making process.
100%, Nikki. You're having a conversation, as you see, with a woman of color with a shaved head. And I'm not going to tell you how many tattoos I have because my nephew said I should stop counting. But appears.
Well, and I've seen you, so I know.
And I gave an actual presentation at ASAE on the look of the CEO who looks like me, who has a shaved head, who comes to the room with tattoos and a pierced nose, but with an MBA. So I'm saying let's stop looking at what's on the outside. Let's concentrate on what's on the inside of a person, and let's embrace all those. That's diversity.
Yeah.
I represent diversity in so many ways. That is diversity at its highest. Here's why I applied for the job, even at SAA. The first thing I do is I go to a website and I said, do I see myself? Do I see people who fall in my network? If the answer to the question is no, I don't want to work there. I don't want to work there. I want to work someplace where I'm heard, I'm respected, my opinion matters. And I don't feel like the weirdo when I walk in the room. I don't feel like
so that's really interesting to me, because I've seen you walk into many, many rooms, and you always walk in so confidently, like, I've got it going on, I know what I'm doing, and often you're presenting on things. So that's interesting to me that you kind of somewhere have felt that, because I feel like I've been watching you walk into rooms for probably 15 years now, and I would have never attributed that to you. You walk in just so confidently, and here I am, I've got knowledge to share, and I know the audience is always excited to hear you share it, but I appreciate you kind of sharing that, right? That little bit of vulnerability of how you have felt. You've had to mask it for a long time.
I had to early on in my career, even sometimes when I walk in a room. But I go back to lessons from my parents about being who you are and representing yourself. I was sharing with a friend a few days ago that my name is spelled Jacqualine, which is very different. And he asked me why. I asked, my mom wanted me to be different, and I said it worked. It worked. And I know that I am not your usual person, your usual looking CEO. And here's why I embrace my staff. I bring your best effort to work. If you want to polish your nails and you're a guy, I don't really care that you have nail polish. I might even check the color out and like it myself. I don't care about that. I care that you have the skills that you need. And if there's a deficit, let me help you get there. How do I create great leaders? That's what I care about. I don't care about the outside. It is okay with me. Bring your best.
As it should be, because who cares? It doesn't impact anything in the long run.
Yes. Now, don't bring a snake to work with you, because I might get out, but.
Well, I mean, that's a little bit different, right? Unless, so you had talked a lot at the beginning about and I love that train analogy, how everybody kind of has to be working together in order to make it move forward. How do you see that balance shifting between that need for a strong individual leadership, and maybe how do you balance the fact that you, Jackie, are the CEO, and you in the background have this collaborative, decentralized decision making, but how do you kind of balance those two, where it needs to come down to the wire, and things have to be decided, or something's not maybe going as it should? How do you kind of balance the individual leadership from that collaborative approach?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, the buck does stop with me. And I've gained the respect with my staff that they understand that. But I don't really need to push it. So here's what I do not push, that I do not go into a room and with the attitude or with the space that I'm the boss. Here's what happens when you naturally move into that space. It is respected, it's understood, and you never have to say it.
Yeah.
You never have to say it. And that's because I operate in a collaborative space. But my staff understands that every now and then there are some times where I will not be able to operate in a collaborative space, that it will be me making the last decision or the ultimate decision. And they may disagree with it. They may disagree with it. And that's okay. That's okay. That's just how decision making is. There are sometimes when the boss just has to make a tough decision. But you know what I say, Nikki? If you're respected along the way, if you operate in a collaborative space, if you allow your staff to be themselves, if you are planting the seeds for great leaders, people accept that. They accept it that sometimes it needs to be individual leadership. And there's no pushback. There's no
And if
pushback.
you think about it, in the association space, that's how we work with our boards, right? You have that collaborative conversation on whatever topic needs a decision made. But once the decision is made by, however you're voting, everybody knows that like we have to be on board with that decision, and we're speaking as one voice as the board. So if you think about it, that's kind of built into the culture of the association management itself. But I think the future is going to be so dependent on leaders like you really bringing their staff into it as well and making them understand, you have a stake in this, but sometimes and so you need to take ownership and run with this. But sometimes I'm going to have to step in and I'll protect you. If that project, if we're trying something new and it doesn't work, I will have your back on that. But sometimes I'm also going to have to step in and make hard decisions that you might not agree with. And, that's such a great a delicate balance, I think, and really takes cultivating a specific culture within your organization.
And if you allow folks to have an opinion when you're making those tough decisions, they're okay when you have to make the final decision. When you allow them to speak and their voices are heard and there's discussion related to the tough decision, people are okay.
Yeah.
It's how parents operate all the time. If a parent needs to make a tough decision, they have I grew up with family meetings because my father was always like, we have to have a family meeting. I'm like, can we just get like Cheerios? We need to talk about Cheerios, the pros and cons of cornflakes and Cheerios. But when we all had an opinion and our opinion is heard, and the final decision lies with the person at the top, the CEO or the parent, it's okay. My opinion was heard.
Yeah. Yeah. And they asked for my opinion.
Yes. They allow me to express myself. So I'm okay walking out of the room. A decision has been made.
Yeah. And I think, especially in change management, we forget so much about making sure that people feel part of something. And so whether it's a change, whether it's a decision, that they need to know the story behind it. They need to be able to have a say about how they feel about it. And then everybody needs to move forward together. And,
100%.
I think that could apply to so many different things, as you said, Cheerios and cornflakes, like whatever it is, everybody just wants to feel like they were part of the discussion.
And no one wants to be part of a process where a decision is made and their voice isn't heard. Here's how you create sort of like that underlining current of rebellion. Because here's what happens when you move into a space where one person's making a decision, no one has a voice. They go quietly back to their desk, and they may not. They walk out supporting, but they may not wholeheartedly support. So instead of them doing research or gathering data, they may be online looking for a new job.
Or talking about it and creating unrest among everybody else.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So if everybody has a voice.
Yeah. That's great.
Things are a lot easier.
So, one of the things that our sector research has been showing in terms of that rapid evolution of member needs and especially their expectations. How do you envision the role of association leaders in ensuring, 20, 25 years from now, that organization still has relevance, still has value, and is still sustainably growing as it enters the next decade, the next 2 decades, et cetera?
Well, I think associations have to do two things here. One, we need to make sure that we're constantly filling in the gap, because there's always going to be something that our members need from our association. What is it? What is that thing or those things? So making sure that we remain relevant by filling in the gap, because their profession is going to change. We need to change as the profession change. So, take archivists. We think about what's happening with archivists. During COVID, digitization was a huge thing, because guess what? The libraries were shut down. Folks were not able to do the research. They were not able to get to information. But if things have been digitized, and some organizations, some libraries, some institutions are doing that, that would not have been this gap. So how are we filling in a gap as it relates to their profession? The second thing, associations have to constantly be thinking about, what is that blue ocean idea? What's the blue ocean strategy? What's that idea that's way out in the ocean that we have said no to, we've said not now to, and we have said never to? It's time to say, well, let's think about it. Let's research it. Let's investigate it. And maybe we need to start moving in that direction. So again, two things: filling in the gap to make sure that we remain relevant, because the profession will always have a need. No matter what profession you're in, there'll always be a need. Yeah. But the other thing is that, how are we thinking about that blue ocean? And then, are we carrying our members along with us? Are we carrying them with us? Because as we grow and change, the membership changes, the generation changes. One of the things that some of my members are struggling with is, we changed our bylaws so that if you apply for fellowship, before you had to have 7 consecutive years of membership. And this is a small thing. And now we just simply say you need to have 7 years of membership. Well, Nikki, we changed this because during COVID, some folks were not able to pay their membership. So are we pushing them out because we had a bad financial year? But some of our members are like, oh my God, this is a horrible thing. Nikki, I don't think it's a horrible thing, because 7 consecutive years of membership created a class of exclusivity.
Yep.
7 years of membership created a class of inclusivity. So how are we looking at those small changes that we can do along the way, so that we'll continue to churn out inclusive benefits and services, so our members are not feeling like, oh my God, I didn't do X, Y, and Z, so now I can't do X, Y, and Z. So again, think about it.
Now I have to start over and waiting for that. I had my 5 consecutive years, COVID hit, I was financially strapped, and now I have to start my 7 years again.
Why?
Yeah, that's a great point.
It's a small change. It's a small thing, but it makes a huge difference. And the difference goes a long way for those who are sitting in that space, because they say, guess what? You hear me. You hear me.
And how often do our governance structures and documents create more barriers for members to participate in some fashion than they do, as you mentioned, to be inclusive of people who are at various stages? I think about like ASAE, for instance, pre-COVID, to participate in their council meetings, you had to be at 2 in-person meetings. Well, unless your association supported you, volunteering, that's a big ask for somebody, again, maybe newer to their career, who wants to participate, to decide whether or not they want to pay for their own travel, hotel, what have you, time off of work. And think about I think they had like 600 applications this year for council membership, because now, since COVID, we're just all meeting virtually, and that's worked. So great. If we're all there at ASE annual and want to get together, we can, but we do the work via Zoom. Yes. So it's not like being in person was making anything move faster, pre-COVID. So, what's the difference?
The problems are the same, and the solutions are gone about the same way, whether you're in person, whether you're virtual. So, yes, like, I think that we need to turn over some things, especially as we support, many organizations have diversity initiatives. But what about inclusive initiatives? What are your inclusive initiatives? What are you peeling back and said, you know what, we no longer need to do it this way, because it does create a barrier. It does create a secret class. It does create exclusivity, but we have to also retrain our members and the way they think about things as we do that. We have a hybrid meeting, And it's an expensive meeting to have, but it's an inclusive meeting, Nikki. Because for
And
those
I'm sure
folks,
you were getting so many different people attending virtually during COVID than you had if you're in person. How do you turn that off?
you can't turn that off
No,
because
you
then you
can't.
turn off hundreds and hundreds of members. So if I
Yep.
think about just my recent annual meeting, I think we had about 1,200 people who showed up in person, but there were 600 people who showed up online. So if next year I decide, or our council decide, you know what, we're just going to do face to face, then what happened to those 600 people?
Yeah. Yeah.
We have created an exclusive group here, an exclusive member experience. Stop.
Yeah. Yeah. And even so much as so full disclosure, I'm also an association forum board member.
Yeah.
And as we've entered our year this year, I've been so much more aware even of just when I'm attending association forum events, how exclusive does it feel when you walk into the registration area and you have all these clumps of people talking in circles and you don't know anybody there. And, it's not a particularly welcoming environment. I know we're all excited because we haven't seen each other maybe in 6 months or what have you, but I have so much more of an eye of like introducing myself and bringing people into the circles or figuring out another way to kind of stand and have those conversations so that you are opening it up to other people who might not know anybody or kind of like, you could tell those people who are kind of timidly walking into the space. I'm not sure what to expect. I don't know who I know here. And making sure we're just welcoming faces as board members and really going up to people and bringing them in and inviting them to participate. That's such a small thing, but it's such a big thing to that person who, is kind of uncertain about what the experience is going to be like.
100%. This is why I say, stop sitting with your friends and sit with some strangers.
Mm-hmm.
Sit with some people you don't know.
Yeah.
For two, this is my second time doing this, inviting a staff, bringing a staff with me to a meeting. So for a holiday showcase, I brought a staff person and I said, okay, I'm going to introduce you and then I'm going to let you go. I'm going to introduce you to some people and then I'm going to let you go. And when I let you go, I need you to go and I need you to go meet some people. I need you to introduce yourself. I need you to make some connections. And oh my God, she was like, oh my God, by the end of the call, she's like, Jackie, I met someone. I met some friends. We exchanged information. I mean, the look on her face was just, it was beautiful because she went out and did exactly. So the first half of the meeting, myself and another colleague, we said, we'll carry you. And this is what we have to do. We have to carry people. Mm-hmm. And then we have to say, all right, we're going to let you go because you have to do it on your own. You can't just be carried forever. You have to do something on your own. But we have to start off. We have to carry people. Let's help them. And stop sitting with your friends. Sit with some strangers.
That's a great advice too. I always, it used to annoy me when I was on the staff side that all staff would kind of sit together like, hey, we have an opportunity to talk to some members here. Everybody spread out.
Yes.
Go have a conversation with some of our members so we could understand, who they are and what their needs are. These are great conversations to be having. When you're a staff at your annual meeting, take advantage of it.
Yes.
People aren't going to call you and tell you what they need and want. But if you could do some informal questioning and just get to know them better, like how great do they feel? Like, oh, staff took the time to come up and listen to me and learn about my business and learn about my struggle and learn about my successes this year. It's
even at my annual meeting, I walk the halls. And the reason why I walk is because this is a way it's a way for me to meet people. And people stop me all the time. Like, I tell my staff, I can't go to the bathroom. First we have gender neutral bathrooms. So even if I'm in there, someone's going to talk to me. But that's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm supposed. This is the work of a CEO. How do I get to know my members? I need to have conversations with them, but I need to be open and willing to do that, regardless of what. So if I'm washing my hands and the person standing next to me is like, "Oh, you're Jackie?" Yes, I'm Jackie. And if that leads to a conversation on the way out of the restroom, it's fine.
Especially, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was just going to say, I'm not untouchable. I'm a person. I'm a human being.
Yeah. And if you think about it, going back to just how do we make our staff comfortable, with meeting people in the association space. I mean, that's how we met. And like, you've been a great resource for me over the years. I think about my connections, you know, the greatest thing about the association space is you really never have to recreate the wheel because somebody smarter than you has already done something that you can take and massage into your own. So, you know, when you have those opportunities to make those connections, somebody's probably solved a problem you're struggling with. So like, let's talk and let's
Yes.
meet more people and really kind of bringing that full circle. You know, when you go back to talking about leadership, and bringing new people in, like that's how you do it as association professionals. Make sure that you're meeting new people and bringing them kind of into the fold.
100%. I say that, you know, one of the things that I practice and I started doing this a long time ago is when I meet someone at an event and the person say, well, you know, can we connect? I say, here's my cell phone number. It's up to you to use it.
Yeah.
It's up to you to use it. And I said, send me a text with your name and a picture. I will save the number. It's up to you to use it. And if you call me, I will answer.
Yep.
I will answer.
Yep.
And most times, guess what? People call me.
And I can confirm she answers.
People call me. Yes, I will
Yeah.
answer. But it's
Yeah.
up to you to use it because it does, you know, there's a two-way street here. It's not just us as leaders giving back, but people also need to be able to do their part, like your part as an association executive, as a professional. Your job, your resume, your brand is 100% your responsibility. Like my brand belongs to Jackie, my resume, my skill set, that is my responsibility, 100%, not anybody else's. So it's up to me to grow that. And if I meet someone along the way to help me grow that, that's willing to connect, it's my responsibility to reach out to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you mentioned, it's our responsibility to respond to those people who are taking a step to grow themselves, right?
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
we're now the generation where we're mentoring others. And so when somebody's kind of brave enough to raise their hand and say, you know, I'd love to talk to you, it's up to us to answer that
yes,
and really take it seriously and see how we can you know, help steer that person in the right direction of the information they need. You know, it might not be something that I know, but I know a heck of a lot of people and I could probably introduce them to somebody. And that, you know, is how we kind of grow those networks and grow that brain trust, if you will.
100%, 100%.
Yeah. And make those changes to leadership that we talked
Yes,
about.
yes. You never know.
No, you do not. Jackie, as always, it is wonderful to talk to you. I'm so glad and appreciative that you took some time out of your day to join us for our 25 lessons in leadership. Do you have any kind of final thoughts that you wanted to maybe leave people with in terms of the future of associations, the future of leadership, anything?
So first, thank you for asking me. Always willing to say yes and to raise my hand when it comes to supporting organizations like Association Laboratory who have contributed so much and been supportive to me. So thank you for inviting me to participate. I'm going to say my last words. I don't know if it has anything to do with leadership. It's just my own personal philosophy in terms of how I operate. But it pours over into leadership. Be kind to each other. Let's just be kind human beings. You know, when I go to bed at night, I ask myself, were you kind today? Did you receive grace? Did you give grace? And that really keeps me, it keeps me grounded. It keeps me settled. When I'm making a decision, are you being kind when you're making that decision, Jackie? Are you being kind when you're asking folks to do certain things? Are you extending grace to folks? You know, we sometimes get so wrapped up into being leaders, running organization, that we forget about simple things like kindness and grace. So my last words would be kind to you folks, and let's extend each other some grace.
Yeah, and it's free and it's easy to do.
It's easy to do, and it makes your life so much easier. Doesn't matter
Yeah.
what decision you make, it makes it just so much easier.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. And thank you to everyone. This has been 25 Lessons in Leadership for Association Laboratory's 25th anniversary. Have a great rest of your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.